Hello there everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be ranking all the CounterPush kits and their balanced state as of October 4th. So, without further ado, let's get started with the tanks. So, Vanguard recently got a buff that makes it so the Protect Potion that it uses on its drop ability actually gives you 4 extra hearts, 4 golden hearts, along with the Cleanse. So it lost the Thorns, but I think like overall this change has been one of the best the kit has seen ever. The Vanguard went from a tank that's usually unplayable or very, very situational to all the way as a must pick if it's not banned at the moment. The final also got changed to make it so that it gives everybody protection, and that means everybody gets 4 extra hearts. So it's basically another support final. So if you guys play Marvel Rivals and you see those kind of like having multiple supports use their finals to keep your team alive, in this game, because you only have one support, having another final like Vanguard final is very, very strong. So it's definitely going to be like one of the top picks if you are playing tank or forced to play tank. Okay, second of all, we have Sentinel. Sentinel I think is still an SS tier kit when it comes to CounterPush, because the bubble barrier and the utility that this kit provides is absolutely huge. You have displacement abilities with your knockback hammer, you have small burst speeds, and your final gives everybody in your vicinity strength, and that's a very, very strong ability in the game. And with the bubble barrier, you're still stopping a bunch of projectiles, and it gives you like resistance and extra hearts. Still a really top tier tank at the moment. Colt, I think Colt is personally an A tier. I think it can be very, very strong. It depends on the player. Like when it comes to Sentinel, having a good PvPer doesn't really matter as much as like having somebody who knows what they're doing and how to use their utility to win team fights. But when it comes to kits like Vanguard and Colt, having a PvPer on it can actually be pretty strong, especially Colt, because Colt is basically like a brawler tank hybrid where you have a bunch of utility that's mainly meant to get from point A to point B. So Colt's gonna go like boom, boom, dash, and you're gonna float up and come down, and it just does a lot of damage overall. I think it's still a really strong kit, but when it comes to like other team utilities and other really strong kits, I don't think it's as strong. So I'm gonna leave it an A for now, but we might change it up a little bit later. Valkyrie, I think Valkyrie actually is kind of like below Colt at the moment. I think Valkyrie has some really strong abilities. When it comes to like the disrupt is still very strong. However, the final is just AoE disrupt for a few seconds, and that relies a lot on your team. It's the same thing with Sentinel, but with Sentinel final giving your entire team strength, even you as a Sentinel who usually has less damage than general other tanks are gonna be able to actually put up some numbers. But when it comes to Valkyrie, you can't put up some numbers, but Vanguard is just such a strong counter, because if you protect with somebody with Vanguard, Valkyrie just can't do anything. So if you're matching up and the enemy has Vanguard open and you're playing against a Vanguard, Valkyrie is just gonna get rolled like 80% of the time. Like even if that's not the case, that means the other Vanguard's probably not like protect potting properly or not spacing properly. Warlock, unfortunately I would say Warlock right now is absolutely unplayable, because its abilities are still strong, but compared to like the other kits, Warlock just doesn't have that much utility. I'd say it has Curse, which is really strong, and only a few kits actually have it, and that's like one of the best ways to get like past like resistances and stuff like that. But still, Warlock has just been kind of out of place with the other tanks for a while now, because it's like very damage heavy, and the final is still really good. Don't get me wrong, Warlock final can be comboed with a bunch of other finals to make like really strong team wipes. For example, you could do Warlock final into a demo, or Warlock final into an Eclipse, or Warlock final into you could do a Warlock final into even a Masquerade or a Lambda. There's so many things that you could do, but the overall util provided by the other tanks are just better. Now this is my personal opinion, but I think Frost is also an SS tier tank. With tanks overall being really solid, I think Valkyrie can be S, but the fact that like Vanguard is just such a strong counter to it keeps it at A tier right now. So Frost, again, it's really solid kit, really good utility, and I don't know if you guys can know this, but these are all the strongest utility kits when it comes to tank right now. Like you have so much like resistances, like projectile blocking, strength, and meanwhile this one gives you 4 extra hearts and CC immunity with your abilities, and this one gives you like AoE invincibility for around like 2 seconds, along with free like CC for single target for another 2 seconds, and that is really strong, especially if you know how to position. I genuinely do think that this is going to be like one of the best tanks you could use if, let's say, this one is like banned. And here is like a weird situation where Warlock is actually pretty good against Frost, because Frost's invincibility is one of its strongest abilities, and it makes it so that you can't deal any damage to anybody who is around the Frost, not just the Frost. And because Curse is an ability that just cuts through those kind of buffs, Warlock actually does play pretty well against Frost. However, because the like a utility, like general utility Warlock has, Frost still comes out on top. And with the CC immunity, like Vanguard still holds a pretty prevalent spot even against like Frost. However, Frost can still put up like quite a bit of a threat if played correctly and positioned properly. Monk. Okay. Unlike Colts, well, I think the Colts and Monk are kind of similar in the fact that they're both kind of like brawler based tanks. I think Monk is just very, very like it's just another brawler. If you want to just like go ahead, come in and get damage, you're gonna play either Colts or Monk. If you're just a pure PvP player, Monk is overall great kit, does good damage, has good space control with its like Yin form and Yang form, good assassination potential, good damage early on while you're in your Yang form, and when you switch to your Yin form, you're practically like unkillable. And the fact that your HP goes from like 8 hearts to like 16, or basically like doubles or something, it's a stupid amount of doubling, makes it so you as a Monk can survive the longest out of any other tank. Even with Frost's invincibility, like once that thing runs out, your HP just goes just like that, just pop, just like Thanos snap, bro. But when it comes to Monk, if you time your transformations correctly, and you can if you're just like a bit smarter with your hits and stuff, you can survive for a really, really long period of time and stall like an insane amount of time. And with your final also fully healing you up while giving you your Yin form and your abilities back again, like that's just like a bunch of health pool, like full regen, not even regens, like full HP resets like 3 times if you use it properly. So I still think it's really, really strong. I think it's stronger than Valkyrie, only because like if Valkyrie or Colts can kill a Monk before it transforms, these two kits will definitely like be higher up. However, if the Monk player knows what they're doing and they properly like time their abilities, a Monk player should easily be able to deal with them, because the sheer number of HP that the Monk has is just absolutely absurd compared to like these two. Okay, now that the tanks are done, let us go to the brawlers. Phoenix. I think Phoenix is overall a really, really strong kit. It has a very high skill ceiling, so if you're really good at the game and know what you're doing when it comes to like your ability usage and rotations, you can definitely like use this kit to a max potential and like definitely run over lobbies. It's a bit of a tricky brawler because there's a bit of a learning curve, but once you get that learning curve and you actually like become decent with Phoenix, you see like really strong players like Landon Legends just running through lobbies with this Phoenix, and it's just absolutely crazy. Next up, Pummel. Unplayable. It's just spam clicking, it doesn't do any damage. I mean, it can, but it's just compared to all the other brawlers, it just doesn't even compare. Aqueous is S tier, honestly. And that's because I think it's very situational though. Yeah, Aqueous is very situational, has really good space control with how fast it can come back with its trident, and Undertow is also a really strong ability if used right. When it comes to assassin comps, I think brawlers, like depends on the map, Aqueous or Vindicator are probably the best assassin brawlers. Justicar. I would put Justicar in S tier. That's mainly because the sheer burst damage is just incredibly powerful. So in this current meta right now, healing is very, very important. So your supports are going to try to keep you alive as much as they can. However, sometimes if you're trading with other brawlers like Phoenixes or Aqueuses, if you're going against a Justicar, that strong shot is very, very powerful because it just guarantees you those kills. It's definitely very, very good, and I think it still holds up in this current meta. Hound, definitely S tier. Hound, ever since it got changed, it just became absolutely broken, honestly. Like, Hound is probably the easiest brawler you can pick up with the most impact in the game. Your right click ability on Hound is practically like the drop ability on Valkyrie, where if you hit the parrot on somebody, they just can't do melee damage to you or anybody else, which can make you win duels much, much faster. And you have a canine companion who also does like small bits of damage here and there, and that adds up a lot, and sometimes they even kill secure for you. So overall, it's just one of the strongest brawlers in the moment right now. Vindicator, I think, is definitely S tier. I don't know about SS. I think it can be played in a SS tier level. I think it's definitely one of the best brawlers as well. However, I think it's definitely better than Aqueous. I think it's better than Aqueous, but Hound and Phoenix just like are insane. Eclipse, I think, is an A tier kit because Eclipse is very, very situational, where if you have certain maps with verticality, which there isn't a whole lot of, but there are some maps like Planet Q, for example, where verticality is very, very important, and having a character like a Vindicator or an Eclipse can definitely win you the game because you have that high ground control. You know, the other characters like Hound, they have the pounce, but it doesn't really have the exact same vertical control as like, let's say, an Eclipse or even a Vindicator. Most of the brawlers are mainly just PvP dependent, so if you're a good PvPer, you can just get away with even playing Pummel. Like, if you're good enough, you can probably play Pummel and just get away with it. I think Eclipse is solid. Eclipse has a strong final. I think that's kind of what, aside from the high ground control, Eclipse final is kind of the thing that's like bringing it up a little bit. We'll move Justicar down. So Justicar having like your parry ability kind of stunning you is kind of a negative, which sometimes sometimes just leaves you just stuck in the air. Meanwhile, your team gets killed if the enemy team is smart enough to not hit you during that time. And I think that gives Eclipse a slight edge over it. I'm just gonna swap their positions. Ronin. I think Ronin is very underrated. I think Ronin is actually an SS tier character. Ronin's assassination ability when it comes to brawlers is very, very high, especially when it comes to some of the squishies. I know I said Phoenix and Vindicator are really good assassins, but Ronin is like the assassin, because you literally have an ability where if you just hold your crouch button for a while, you enter your passive state, which makes it so you're literally invisible to the enemy team. So you can literally just walk around the other team and just like attack the supports from the back, which is really strong. And your ability to make them float and just crash them down can be very, very disorienting, especially combined with another like Colt, for example. Colt and Ronin have the best knockup synergies in the game. Yeah, if you're going against them, just you're not gonna have a fun time. I'll just say that for now. And when it comes to Ronin, you also do have to like use your abilities well. I think Ronin's more of a complicated character. Like its abilities are simple, but at a high level it can be very complicated because you have your dash, and then you have your float and drop. You also have your invis to assassinate players, and your final is an execute, which resets all your ability cooldown. So you gotta be able to like think fast. Robin, I think, is B tier. I think Robin is B tier because I think the other snipers are just generally better. Robin can have a lot of damage, as we've seen like a few months ago, where players just started to play Robin because they were like, you know what, I'm gonna bring this kid back, and you saw the sheer amount of damage they were getting. Deadeye, I think Deadeye is A, where Deadeye is a very strong sniper and has one of the strongest finals. It is very map dependent, of course. If you have more of an open map with a lot of hazards, Deadeye is probably going to be your best sniper because your final can just like instantly win you team fights, especially on certain maps like Solora, where a Deadeye final can either make or break the entire game for you. If your team sniper gets a good Deadeye final, that might just give you the number of points needed to win. And Neptune, I think Neptune is SS because out of all the snipers so far, Neptune is the only sniper who can actually 1v9 or 1v5, you know? If you're a good Neptune and you should be just dashing into the enemy team, dashing out, shooting them with lightning, just burst damaging certain people, getting them low. And it's one of the best snipers with a really high skill ceiling, where if you are one of the best Neptunes, you're gonna have fun. Meanwhile, everybody else on the other team is just gonna suffer. They're gonna have an awful time. Lambda. I think Lambda is also an S because it's really, really strong. Really good final. Sometimes people can have really good defenses near the end, so having a final like a Lambda final just to secure that point can definitely help you out quite a lot. Jungle, I think Jungle's good. Very good burst damage, and the train can be very, very nice to separate people as well. Final, unfortunately, not the best, which is the final with this one's also not the best. However, the sheer mobility that this sniper has compared to the other snipers is just much, much better, so that's why Neptune's so high up. Rocket, I think Rocket is just bad. I don't think it's unplayable. I've seen like certain players trying out Rocket, and they're definitely getting a lot of damage on it. However, the playstyle that requires you to play Rocket like that, it's very suicidal, where you just like throw a TNT into the enemy team, you have to go ahead and explode it, and you just have to constantly try to keep doing that. And I don't think you use your dash too often, but yeah. Dune Funnel actually got kind of a buff recently, and that makes Dune really, really strong, because before Dune Funnel was good and Dune was really good as well when it comes to snipers. However, the final was a bit janky, but I think the final change definitely makes Dune really good too, because the further you are for Dune, the more damage you do. You want to be as far as you can when you're playing Dune and shoot your enemies down. And if somebody does come close, you do have the option of just knocking them back with your melee weapon. Ghost, unplayable. I think if you're a really good player, you can play it. However, I think in most situations, like 8 out of 10 situations, and I say 8 out of 10 because some of the really best players at the moment can play Ghost to a good level. And when they play Ghost to a good level, they're like an A or an S. However, for like people generally trying to get into the game or something, I don't think Ghost is a easy kit to try out. They're very squishy. You have a rollback, you have knockback, and your final is also kind of like Ronin, where it resets if you kill somebody. So you just got to get out of invis, kill somebody, heal up to max HP, reset again, and you just have to keep doing that. However, if you die, that's it. I think Optics is good, but I don't think it's as good as it was before. I think with Vanguard just getting its changes, it just completely shuts down Optics, like, you know, ultimate completely. If you're like keeping up with the Optic and you use your final when an Octave uses their final, I think it should get rid of the effects. I'm not 100% sure. Ivy, I think Ivy is an S tier because Ivy has a lot of utility, especially when it comes to its Spore Spitter. It's kind of like the Namor of the game, where you just throw down your Spore Spitters and they grow slowly, and if somebody comes into their range, they just shoot. And Ivy also has a stun. It has, unlike any other Trickster, it has an ability that heals it. If you get on one of your Spore Spitters and you crouch, you're gonna heal up like 6 hearts, I think, which is really, really strong, especially considering no other Trickster in the game kind of does that. Like, it's the only other Trickster that heals you. Bandit is a SS tier kit. definitely. It has an ability on its second slot called Moonshine, which is a resistance potion. Practically, you throw that on the ground and you can survive anything for like 2 seconds. It reduces the incoming damage by like an absurd amount, like 70% or something like that. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm not a nerd like that, but still really strong. Its pull is really good too, and its Mud Bucket, which is its drop ability, slows anybody in an immediate radius, including the bandit. So the rest of your team can just easily better pick off people if you just use your bandit hook to drag somebody in, and then you use your Mud Bucket to slow them down, and you can just kill them pretty instantly. Demolition, I think Demo is an S tier. Again, like all of these aren't exactly in order. It's based on like tanks, brawlers, snipers. So Demolition, Demo is probably one of the easiest tricksters to pick up, and it has the most damage capacity, let's just say, especially considering its right click is just you throw a bomb and you can right click it again to explode it, which is AoE damage, and you have Miner Buddy, which is your drop, which just spawns a Miner Buddy, which is kind of like a zombie who just controls the space, and it does damage to anybody who comes close to it when it comes to like the enemy team. So you can use it as a body blocker, and you can just spawn it, and you can just like keep hitting it and knocking it into the enemy team to create space for yourself. It's this really strong ability, and your final being the Creeper, which can KO an entire team, which is crazy, by the way, including yourself. So you have to be very cautious when you use it, because if you use it and the enemy sees you coming to use it, you're just they're gonna kill the Creeper and you're gonna die and you're gonna get no value. However, if you use it at an angle where the enemy doesn't notice you and they can't kill it, if you like combo it with another support like ability, oh my god, you're gonna get, it's just instantly gonna kill them, and it's gonna deal a bunch of damage to some of the enemies who are on the edge of the radius, so you can easily just win team fights out of that. Overall, I think it's definitely really good. Like, even for new players especially, I think Demo is probably the trickster you want to try picking up first. Blink. I think Blink is an SS tier kid. And this is a bit controversial. I think this is a bit controversial because Vanguard exists. And if Vanguard's ability actually cleanses Blink's ability, so it cancels each other out. Where Blink can go to the backline and use its drop ability to plant a bomb on one of the enemy teammates, and the bomb's gonna explode for 3.5 hearts of damage. Or is that 4.5? No, 4.5 hearts of damage. I'm pretty sure. And that's a lot of damage. And because of that, Blink is usually used as an assassin to just pick off these kind of kits with really low HP pools, especially like Cupid, Lich, and all that stuff. Blink recently got a change that made it so its dashes are now much more consistent, and the movement alone on Blink feels so good to play. Even if your bombs may be getting like a bit countered and cleansed by the Vanguard, you can still like dash into a fight, get a bunch of damage, and dash out. You can dash in, dash out, or you can even dash in and do some damage, and when somebody gets a hit on you, you can dash further into their team and just attack the sniper and the support, and by the time they're trying to come in, you're much faster enough, you can just dash through them again. I personally think Blink is an SS tier kit. Octave, definitely the top of SS tier when it comes to tricksters. Octave just has the best zone control in the entire game, and hopefully I haven't been saying in the entire game for like majority of these kits, but Octave in particular is probably one of the tricksters with the best utility, and Octave actually counters really strong kits like Sentinel and Frost, even Vanguard, because Octave is really confusing because you have 3 songs that boost your teammates' abilities and 3 songs that nerf the enemy team's abilities. And by abilities, I mean it gives them like Mining Fatigue, it gives them like Curse, which like I mentioned with Warlock, really strong, and your final is just overall decent zone control too. Octave is probably the best trickster in my opinion. If you've been playing in any of the actual tournaments and stuff, you would know how oppressive a good Octave can be, and that's why a lot of people have been banning Octave, because they just do not want to deal with this. And then we have Masquerade. I think Masquerade is kind of on the same level as Optic. However, I just think Octave open, you should probably play an Octave instead of a Masquerade. Although Masquerade can be pretty fun with its like util and stuff like that, Octave just does everything Masquerade does, but to a much better extent. Now we get into the supports. It's already been quite a while, but okay. So Cleric, I think Cleric is an S tier support. Really good healing output, like does a lot of healing. Probably the easiest support out of the bunch to play, honestly. And yeah, just overall one of the best heal bots in the game. Alchemist, SS, definitely. It's just super strong, and the ability to just like make potions for different situations, where you can have your anti-potion, which is the purple one, which does anti-heal in a meta where healing is really strong. A single anti-heal which lands on a key target can be what decides a fight. And hell, it was so strong, it was called the win condition a while ago, because people realized that, oh, this can be a very big problem if we get hit by that. So yeah, and I think it's still very prevalent to this day. However, there are ways that people used to dealing with it, especially with like Sentinels or Frosts, where if you use your Bubble Berry with Sentinel, the potions get eaten up, and then Alchemist literally has nothing else except for its mini potions to take care of it. If the Frost invincibilities, if you're throwing an negation potion, which is the anti-potion, it's just not going to do anything. It's going to splash, it might anti-heal them, but you're invincible for like 2 seconds. So if they time it right, they can still like counter it. But overall, when it comes to like dealing with the other supports like Cleric, who is just purely a heal bot, and you can do some damage with it too, having landing a really strong anti could be what decides an entire team fight, and that can definitely add up when you're playing with games. So yeah, I think it's an SS. Final is pretty decent too. You get it relatively fast. Templar, I think, is a B tier hit. I think it's very, very situational, and you only want to play it if the enemy team is just like very, very strong and you can't seem to penetrate them. Well, wording, but if you can't seem to break past their defenses, because sometimes when it comes to like other supports like an alchemist or cleric, you're trying to play more for survivability, so you're trying to keep your team alive as much as you can. But when it comes to like Templar over here, it's all about aggressive. You're trying to go, you're trying to hit people, and it's very, very, it's a much different playstyle when it comes to support, and I just don't think it gets a decent amount of value, especially considering a bunch of these kits. Alchemist has a bunch of options when it comes to potions like Noxious and Ambro as well. I didn't say that, but it has anti-potion, which gives like anti-heal. It has Noxious, which gives weakness to a like lingering weakness for a little bit, so anybody who fights there just doesn't do any damage, so your team can just kill them. And it has Ambro, which gives resistance and insta healing. Really, really strong. Final is good. Templar Final is pretty good. Actual invincibility to everybody for a short period of time. Shaman, I think Shaman is an A tier kit. I think Weakness Shower and Healing Shower they're very situational, and I think they are a bit map dependent too. However, I think Shaman can definitely be played on an SS tier level if you're like really good and you know what you're doing. However, compared to like a cleric or like an alchemist especially counters Shaman hard, because if an alchemist gets a bunch of poke on a shaman, the shaman has to use up its mana to heal, then it might pose some resource issues for the shaman later on. This kit, Ventriloquist, unplayable. Just don't even bother. It's basically like Mercy from Overwatch, I hear. I don't play the game. Cupid, S tier, easy. One of the best burst healers in the game at the moment, where if you can have a tank who has like a bunch of HP just missing on a half a heart, you can instantly heal them up to like full HP within like 3 seconds. And that's something that no other support can do right now. With Alchemist's like healing being on mini potions and the Ambro, you can only heal them up maybe to like half in 3 seconds. Meanwhile, Cupid can just full heal them up instantly, and you have a stun which anti-heals and bounces on enemies when you're in your like heartbreak form, which can be really, really strong, by the way. Overall, I think these two are probably the best supports right now, in my opinion. And Cupid Final also gives your entire team like regeneration, and it gives them strength being very, very rare in this game. Only Sentinel Final over here, and Cupid Final giving strength to the team, along with Shaman Final. Shaman Final also does that, but it doesn't give it to the team. It only gives it to a single player, so which is called a boost. Shaman's Final is really, really strong, but you got to be careful. If you use it accidentally on somebody else, you're not going to get too much value out of it. However, like the Cupid Final, you don't have to worry about it. You just send it, and if there's anybody in the vicinity near, they're just going to get fully healed up, and they're going to do a bunch of strength, so everyone on the enemy team should probably run away or block it with the Sentinel. That's another thing. Like, Sentinel can block finals. This is just a general tier list. I'll go into each of the kits differently on other videos. Lich, I think Lich is an S tier support. Lich is a different playstyle compared to the other supports, because you have to get blood in order to actually heal and use your ability, which is like a triple stun you shoot forward. But because you have to like get blood to heal, you have to constantly play at a range where you're kind of playing in the mid range, and your abilities cost, your healing costs 2 blood points, your stun costs 3, and because of that, you have to manage your blood pretty well. Overall, Lich is one of the supports where you can get a lot of damage. If you want to heal your team, you need to be able to go and get some blood, and if you're going to get some blood, you're probably in a position where you might be punished for it. If somebody can poke you out, like, you're going to have to waste your blood on healing, and even if you do win a team fight and you don't have any blood, you can't heal your team, so you're forced to go further into the enemy spawn to try to get some more blood and come back, and they can definitely punish you for that. Meanwhile, your team is forced to run around, grab health packs. Paramedic, I think, is an S tier kit. I definitely think Paramedic is an S tier kit. I think people just haven't really learned to play with a Paramedic too well, because Paramedic itself, like, if you're playing Paramedic, you feel like you're doing fine because you have health packs and you're dropping health packs on the ground and you're supercharging them, and you have your drone, which it makes you literally unkillable. You and your teammates unkillable, and you have a cleanse. That's really strong. Only problem is, because you use health packs, people literally have to keep track of where those individual health packs are, and they have to like go to it when they're low. And sometimes when they're low, like if they're trading with an enemy and they get low, they might just try to like run away to a health pack and the enemy might just kill them. Meanwhile, if you're playing somebody like a Cupid or an Alchemist or even a Cleric or even Shaman, you can stay fighting in the front and you're constantly getting healed, so you don't have to worry about having to back away and reposition. And that's where I think the weakness when it comes to Paramedic comes from. Paramedic's cleanse ability, however, it's really strong, where you cleanse negative effects. If you get anti-healed or poisoned or anything like that, you can instantly cleanse it AoE, and it gives you a little bit of healing. It is on a bit of a high cooldown, but because the sheer number of like abilities with stuns and slows and bombs and a bunch of other like anti-heals, grounds, like I think the cleanse is one of the strongest abilities in the game, along with the Sentinel bubble barrier. So I want to put Paramedic in SS tier because I know it can be very difficult having to play against a good Paramedic. However, when you're playing Paramedic, your team is not gonna have a fun time because they're gonna be used to the VIP treatment of getting healed constantly while not even knowing they're taking damage. You know, if you're playing Paramedic, you're gonna know you're taking damage. Like, you're gonna know because your support won't be able to heal you up instantly. So you're gonna feel like you're just playing a game where you're just missing a player even though you have so much utility on Paramedic. So yeah, that will be my CounterPush October kit tier list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching the video. This has just been my thoughts, by the way. If you guys have your own opinions and stuff like that, it's completely valid. Like, some of these kits can actually be used on like a pro level or like a really good level. They can become SS. It's all very player dependent. For example, which I consider to be like a really bad kit on a really high level, and it becomes an SS tier kit. And I think that saying works with most of these kits, except for 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Yeah, except for those ones, I think the rest is very player dependent. So I think if you can figure out a way to just like find the kit that you want to play and that fits your play style, you can definitely play it to a really high extent. However, you should try to pick up a few kits in here in each of the classes to better help you out a little bit. So yeah, that'll be my video. See you guys next time. Take care.